Today, I'm going to talk more about what's going on with my personal business. So I'm going to be taking a look at my business today. I'm going to talk about my goals. What am I looking to achieve? What are the targets that need to be hit? I'm going to talk about these things. All right. I'm going to talk about my business today. So yesterday we were taking a look at the whole situation. My whole thing right now is that these animals are ready to go on grass. If you take a look at these animals, they're all ready to go on grass. But I legitimately have zero water on my new field. There is zero water. There is zero water on the road. There is zero water under the field. There is zero water. And so for me to take my cattle over there, even if I dug the pond right now, even if I paid the city to reinstall the water line, it's going to take, reinstalling the water line is going to take like a year. Building, digging a pond and then filling it up with water is going to take weeks, maybe even months, depending on how much rain I get. Right now, you can see that everything is bone dry. Maybe I have gotten 5 inches of rain in the last, 3 months. Everything is bone dry, and if something like this happens, then I legitimately have zero water. And so I've been talking about this. I need to have something ready just in case, because if I don't have access to city water and I don't have access to groundwater, and if I run out of water, then that's a very big problem, especially if it's hot outside, right? I mean, my cattle are gonna die within like a day. So this whole thing, I need to figure out an emergency water situation. I need to figure out something, how do I get water on my property, even if I don't get any rain, right? Et cetera, right? Because I can't be sitting in a situation where I legitimately have zero water. That's not good. Even if I paid the city to install a new water line, it would take like a year, months. Government workers take a long time to do anything. Even if even if I dug a pond and I had to fill it up with water, I would need like 15 inches of rain. I've only maybe gotten 5 inches of rain over the last 3 months. And so, I don't have any water. I can't be in a situation, I need to be ready for something like this, right? Especially if I'm going to grow my business at the rate that I'm going to grow it, I need to have water, right? I can't just be sitting there without water. All right, and so the whole thing, that's what's going on with the water situation and the business, the goals. We're going to talk about the objectives, the targets, the goals. What am I looking to do, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm gonna talk about my business today. So the big idea with my business right now is what? In terms of the goals, I've already gone over the things that I need to achieve, right? I've already talked about my objectives. I've already talked about the goals that need to be reached. I've already talked about the targets, right? I've already talked about this a lot. When I sell my 33 animals, when I take a look at the 1 year span of things, when I sell my 33 animals, I effectively believe that I will have enough money. I logically anticipate, not even believe, I logically anticipate that when it's all said and done, I'll have about 50 animals left over. In reality, it'll probably be closer to 60, but I'm just going to say 50. I'm just going to say 50 to lowball myself. I'm just going to give myself a lowball estimate at 50. And if I have 50 animals worth of equity, and I've already spoken about this whole thing, I did not realize that I legitimately thought I needed to make about somewhere around 500 to 1,000% more money than I actually need to. And so now that I know these different things, I actually, I'm in a different financial situation. All right, and I'll talk about all these things right now. I did not realize that I was doing effectively 500% to 1,000% better than I actually need to be doing to do what I need to do. I did not realize that. And then I figured that out when I spoke to my CPA, right? I was talking to my CPA, and he gave me the information. He was kind of giving me the crazy eye, because he's like, why are you investing like 175% of your income, right? And I've already spoken about this, the idea of like, if you're actually going to go and do what I do, you need to make sure that you need to do everything. Because if you legitimately, I've already spoken about this, if you invest, and if you want to take a look at the bigger thing, I've already talked about this. I effectively have about $10 million on the line. All right, a lot of you don't understand that if you flop on $10 million, you are effectively bankrupt for eternity. There are things that you can do to legally protect yourself and your personal assets etc., etc. But you should not be planning on doing that. That should not be the plan from the get-go. You should not be, oh my God, I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna accumulate money, pull the money out of my business, and then bankrupt the thing and legally protect myself. You should not be doing that. There are people that do that, and it doesn't ever work out. All right, so, you know, and it's like, if you're actually taking a look at what I'm doing, you need to understand that you need to do everything or not do it at all. Because the situation that I'm in, it's like I invest about I probably invest close to about 175% of my annual income every single year. All right, I mean, this is not this is not some and at this point in time, I understand that I don't need to do that. But here is my reasoning for why I'm going to continue forward with the plans. And so the whole idea is what? Right now I have 30 animals, and when I sell these 30 animals, I effectively believe that I will have enough money. When it's all said and done, I will have about 50 animals left over, right? In reality, I'll probably have closer to 60, okay? But let's just say 50. And if I have 50 animals worth of equity, and I go to the bank and I take a loan for another 50 animals worth of equity, then that just puts me at a net zero. I don't, even if I lost 100% of my animals, I don't want to lose, I would have to effectively lose about 75% of my animals to be at a net zero. If I lost 75% of my animals, I would effectively be at zero. I wouldn't even be in the negative, right? And I've already spoken about this whole thing, right? The idea of the cost of the animal. When it comes to the cost of the animal, how do I gauge the cost of the animal? I look at the feeder cattle price. I go on the stock market. I go on the commodity market. I look at the feeder cattle price. And for my local market, I have found that a logical way to determine how much the cost of an animal is to take a 10% deduction of the feeder cattle price number and then cut that number in half. And when I have that number, that animal effectively represents a number 1 to 1.5. Also 1.5, not just straight number 1. I don't buy straight number 1 type cattle. Number 1 to 1.5 type. Medium large frame steer at 200 pounds, at roughly around 200 pounds. That's how I determine the cost of an animal. And so right now in my situation, the whole business plan, what am I looking to do with my business, right? What am I looking to do with my business? I have 33 animals. When I sell these 33 animals, I effectively believe that I will have somewhere around 50 animals left over, right? I want to go and take my animals on grass. I want to go and put them on grass, but I can't put them on grass if I don't have any water. And in terms of the water situation, I actually need to be ready for an emergency as well. I can't just run a business and then hope that everything goes well forever. There will be times when the ponds dry up. There will be times when things get blazing hot and I have no water. Right, so I need to have a logical, reasonable way to have a large, and I've already talked about in terms of a larger animal. They're going to drink about 10 gallons of water a day apiece, each. So if I have 70 animals over there and they're 650 pounds on the average, they're going to drink about 10 gallons of water a day each. That's 650 gallons of water a day. So I need to, if I don't have any city water and I don't have any groundwater, then I need to figure out a logical way to have a large amount of water. Even a 1,000 gallon water tank is not going to solve anything in the long term. And 1,000 gallons of water weighs 8,000 pounds. If I'm gonna, if I legitimately want to haul 1,000 gallons of water at a time, it's gonna cost hundreds of dollars, right? I mean, if I want, I was taking a look at this. If I want to rent a big water truck to haul about 4,000 gallons of water to my field, it's gonna cost about $700 for 4,000 gallons of water. That's not good. Right, and so the whole situation is that I need to be ready, right? If I'm going to, I need to think about these things in advance, because I don't want to be sitting there in a situation. Oh my God, it's 105 degrees outside. My ponds are completely dry. The Weather Channel is saying that it's gonna be 105 degrees for the next 3 weeks. Right, there's gonna be 0 rain. Now what do? I don't want to be in that situation, right? And so I need to think about these things in advance. And so in terms of the bigger idea for the business, I have 33 animals. When I sell these 33 animals and then I get new animals and I more or less get them all ready to go, stabilized, ready to go, I believe that I will have about 50 animals left over. So those 50 animals, I will take a loan for 50 more, and that puts me at a net zero. Now I have 100 animals. I raised those 100 animals, and this is just to get a overall look at the idea. The animals that I buy are more or less going to be about 200 pounds. All right. Sometimes, I mean, they go anywhere from about 150 to about 325, but let's just say 200. I've already said that 200 is the benchmark animal. Do I go to the sale barn and look for specifically 200-pound animals? No. But that's more or less usually what I end up coming home with. Something about 200, 2.25. So I take these animals from 200 to 2.25 to about 850. Body conditioning score 6. I raise them to a commercial standard. When I do that, I effectively make enough money to buy about 2 animals every time that I sell one, more or less. Granted that I get some good grass, granted that I grow the grass, right? And I've already talked about the idea of me growing grass right now. In terms of the strategy for growing grass, what am I going to do? I'm going to increase the amount of fertilizer that I am using. Why? Because I have no groundwater. If you take a look at the fertilizer, how does fertilizer interact with the environment? Negatively charged fertilizers dissolve into rainwater, create a solution, and that solution is pushed through the ground. That's called leaching, right? And so if I have no groundwater underneath the field, then I don't have to worry about leaching. When you have a positively charged fertilizer repels from the soil. Why? Because soil is also positively charged. So in terms of positively charged fertilizer, the biggest risk in terms of positively charged fertilizer damaging the environment, one of the biggest risks are what? Accidentally physically throwing the fertilizer into a body of water. It does not take a large amount of fertilizer to create like some massive algae bloom, right? You really do not want to be throwing fertilizer into water on accident. If you get a large amount of rain and you're not prepared for it, and you fertilize your field before a very large amount of rain, it's going to carry that fertilizer off of your field. All right. I've already said in terms of I've spoken about this a lot, but in terms of the optimal amount of rain from what I have seen, if you really want the optimal amount of rain for fertilizing, it's going to be about a ½ inch to about 1 inch of rain. That's you really don't want to be going over 1 inch of rain unless you are pretty certain that the rain is going to happen over a very long period of time. It's not just going to dump rain. If it dumps rain, it will actually carry the fertilizer off, and if it carries that fertilizer off and it deposits that fertilizer into a body of water, you can now have large problems, and it can actually cause animal health problems, etc., very large problems. All right, and so that's the in terms of me growing the grass, I'm going to increase the fertilizer usage. Why am I going to increase the fertilizer usage? Because I had a geologist come out and take a look at the rock underneath my field. I had the rock underneath my field surveyed, and I legitimately have 0 groundwater. I don't have any groundwater at all, so I'm not worried about the minerals leaching into the water. I'm not worried about causing damage to the water underneath. I'm not worried about causing, damage to the environment underneath my field, right? And so, granted that I don't physically throw the fertilizer into bodies of water, which I'm not going to do. I've already said that. Why would I do that? I mean, why would I do that? I'm not going to throw fertilizer into water, right? I mean, I'm not like a crazy person, right? I'm not like a malicious individual. I'm not going to go and throw fertilizer into water. And so, and also, I'm also very aware of these ideas of what needs to happen for fertilizer to be utilized properly, right? And so, et cetera, et cetera. And in reality, if you're, unless you are like in a very, like you are looking at a situation and you're going, this is actually the chance, right? Like the Weather Channel is saying that I'm going to get 1 inch of rain for like 4 days in a row. The Weather Channel is saying I'm going to get like 1 inch of rain for like 5 days in a row. Other than that, you should not even be applying positively charged fertilizer top dressed anyway under any, there is no reason to do it, right? I've already talked about this. Positively charged fertilizer, or excuse me, the soil is negatively charged. Did I say the soil was positively charged? I don't remember if I said this, but the soil is negatively charged, excuse me. The soil will repel negatively charged fertilizer, and that's why negatively charged fertilizer does not stick to the soil, but when it creates a solution, it will actually go through the field because the fertilizer molecules will not stick to the soil. So they will actually, I said soil was I did not, redact that part. Soil is negatively charged, okay? Soil is negatively charged. And so when you put a positively charged fertilizer on the field, the fertilizer will actually bind to the soil chemically. So, unless, but you don't want to be in a situation where the water carries off your fertilizer, okay? If I've already talked about soil. Soil is like beef jerky. If you have dry soil, imagine dropping beef jerky into a glass of water. It's not going to rehydrate immediately. It's going to take a long time for that beef jerky to rehydrate. So if you put positively charged fertilizer on a field, and then it rains a lot, that water is going to hit the ground, and then it's just going to stay above the ground. It's not going to immediately soak into the earth. It's not going straight into the ground. It's not going straight into the ground. The soil is not immediately rehydrating. And so, unless you are like you are looking at your situation, I've already said that in terms of a reality, there's only really 1 or 2 times a year that I will actually take a look at the overall situation and determine that it is actually a good time to put positively charged fertilizer on a field via top dressing. Almost always, the way that I, in terms of how I apply positively charged fertilizer, is that I put it on the field and then I physically displace the fertilizer into the ground. Right? I talked about this. I plow the fertilizer into the field. All right, almost, that's the most reasonable way to do it. And like, if you are looking at your situation and you're going, I actually see this circumstance, and for me, it really only happens maybe once or twice a year. Like, if you're going around and putting positively charged fertilizer on your field every single month, it's like you should not be doing that. It's not going to do anything. Either the fertilizer is just going to get washed away, or it's just going to bind to the top inch of your soil, and then it's not going to do anything. All right, and I've already talked about the idea of applying fertilizer, right? When you apply fertilizer, a lot of people, you actually end up in a situation where you misdiagnose your fertilizer. You misdiagnose it. You think you have a nitrogen deficiency, but you don't have a nitrogen deficiency. You have a sulfur deficiency. You thought you had a sulfur deficiency, but you don't have a sulfur deficiency. You have a calcium deficiency. And so you apply the wrong fertilizer, and the fertilizer looks like it's not doing anything. If anything, it looks like it's getting worse. Why does that happen? Because if you have a nitrogen deficiency, if you have a sulfur deficiency and you apply nitrogen to your field, the sulfur deficiency will just continue to get worse. So it's very important, like, and I've already talked about this whole thing. If you go around and you take a look at, how long will it take for you to find somebody who is like, a fertilizer doesn't do anything. How long do you think it's going to take for you to go and, I don't fertilize because fertilizing damages the environment. How long do you think it's going to take before you find somebody like that? It won't even take 30 seconds. Fertilizing does not damage your environment. If you don't fertilize your field, you're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to grow any significant amount of crop. And legitimately, if you have the wrong information and you're spreading the wrong information, or if you the longer that you believe in the wrong information for, the more permanent the damage has become. All right, and I'm serious, and I'm saying this with the utmost sincerity that maybe you turn yourself around. I'm being completely serious. I'm not here to save people. I don't have time. Time is the one thing that nobody can waste, right? And so, I'm just giving you the information. And this is why. All right, your soil is negatively charged. Your fertilizer either has a negative or a positive charge, and depending on that charge, there are ways for, and ultimately what needs to happen is that the fertilizer needs to come into contact with the roots of the plant. When the fertilizer comes into contact with the roots of the plant, it is then absorbed by the plant. There is a large chemical reaction in the plant. I've already talked about this, right? And the whole reason that this effectively, when you take a look at it, what is it? It's photosynthesis, right? The sunlight goes through the plant material, goes through the chloroplast cell. When it goes through the chloroplast cell, it creates sugar, and that sugar is now the energy source for this chemical reaction to happen, and then the biomass of the plant is then accumulated, right? Carbon is collected via the atmosphere by gas. And that atmospheric carbon gas is then metabolized to create the physical structure along with the other minerals, water, sugar, etc., right? All of these things, right? There's a large chemical reaction. There's a large chain reaction, and when that chain reaction happens, the plant then grows. And so, in terms of the strategy for growing the grass, I've already decided that I'm going to increase the amount of fertilizer that I'm using. And I'm gonna do that because I'm not gonna go into drop tonnages of fertilizer on each acre of my field, but I am going to increase the amount of fertilizer that I am using. Because if you take a look at my overall business idea, I rely on the grass, right? The grass. I've already talked about this. In terms of my business strategy. The whole idea of me growing grass is that grass, okay. And in terms of a fundamental idea, grass is almost, it is very cheap. I'm not going to say it's free. It's very cheap to grow grass. And in the area of the world that I am in, I have a very large amount of cattle. There are, there are probably over 20,000 cattle, over 15,000 cattle that gets sold every single week, except for like major holidays, within an hour and a half of me. There was over 15,000, maybe even over 20,000 cattle every single week that gets sold within an hour and a half of me. There was a very large cattle market. Our cattle are evaluated at a little bit less of a price. We pay a premium for corn. Our corn market is expensive, but our soil and our natural weather will effectively grow grass about 9 months out of the year, every single year. So on the average year, our soil will grow grass about 8 months out of the year. And so when I take a look at the overall situation, and I've already talked about the idea of growing corn. When you have corn, you need to grow the corn. You probably, if you're going to grow GMO corn, which almost everybody does, right? Now you're talking about, you're still probably going to, I don't know if you need to, put a fungicide on it or whatever, but, you're going to have to grow this corn. Then you're going to have to combine it. And here in Texas, our summers are blazing hot. The corn almost always completely fries up. Maybe we get 100 bushels an acre here. We don't get a lot of corn in this area. We don't have any groundwater. Our summers are blazing hot. Maybe we get somewhere between 75 and 100 bushels an acre if we grow corn. And when you grow that corn and you want to harvest that corn, now you need a combine. You need a big old grain bin. You need a big old truck, right? You need to haul that corn. You need to combine that corn, put it on a truck, put it in a big old grain bin, take it from the grain bin, put it back on your truck, take it to a commodity broker, and then sell it. My business is that I just grow the grass and then I put the animals on the grass. In reality, if I realize that, like when I take a look at my numbers and I say, I've taken a look at the commodity markets, and even though I pay a premium for corn, if I supplement my animals with about 1% of their body weight a day in corn, it's going to cost this much. And if I feed them 1% of their body weight a day in corn, and they get the rest of their diet in grass, then I'll put on an extra pound a day. And if I make a positive return feeding my animals corn, then I will feed them the corn. Why wouldn't I? Right? Think about it logically. Like if you were in a situation where you could put 50 cents into something and get $1 back, would you? Why would you not do it? Right? That's the whole, right? So me, when I take a look at everything that I got going on, in reality, it's like I'm growing the grass. And it's like, oh well, if I I really want to keep my animals at a energy concentration of about 65-70%. How do I know that my animals are getting an energy concentration of about 65-70%? And I really want to keep their protein at around 12 to 14%. How do I know that? I grade their manure score, right? If they're having a diarrhea, gassy diarrhea, then they're having acidosis, right? Or it's not always acidosis. Sometimes it's also that they're drinking bad water, and if they're drinking bad water, they probably got E. coli or salmonella. And also, this is also one thing that a lot of you probably don't know, but water rots. Water will actually go bad, and so that's also one thing. If I'm going to store water above ground, the water, eventually it's going to rot. It's going to expire. The water is going to go stagnant and it's going to go bad. And so that's also another thing that I need to think about. You know, how am I going to keep this large body of water from going bad? And you know, because you can't give cattle bad water. You know, it'll give them all sorts of problems. And so you know. But in terms of the overall business, the business idea, you know, what am I looking to do with my business, right? You know, continue talking about my business for today. The big idea is I'm gonna take my 33 animals, and when I sell these 33 animals, I'm on a low ball estimate. I'm anticipating that I have 50 animals left. With these 50 animals, I'm gonna take a loan from the bank for 50 more animals, because if I do that, I'm at a net zero. If I'm at a net zero and I'm appreciating 100 cattle at the same time. And when I do this over the next year, I anticipate that these 100 animals, granted that the feeder cattle market goes somewhere between 240, 250. You know, even if it goes down to $2, it doesn't matter to me, because the thing about me is that if I sell them cheap, I'll buy them cheap. It doesn't matter. I've already talked about the idea of how do I balance my risk out of the commodity markets, right? I've already spoken about this a lot, right? The big idea is that I buy into the market every 2 weeks. If I buy into the market every 2 weeks, effectively, I'm always going to be on the average, right? I've already talked about cattle are not going to zero. If you legitimately think that beef cattle are going to be free one day, if you legitimately think that you're going to walk into a grocery store one day and T-bone steaks are going to be free, you're an idiot. And you should reconsider everything, your entire existence. Beef cattle are not going to zero. All right, and so even if the feeder cattle, and I've already talked about balancing the risk out of the commodity markets, right? You know, I'm gonna buy into the cattle market every 2 weeks. I'm gonna buy and sell cattle every 2 weeks. And if I do that, then I don't have to worry about the commodity markets going up or down, because I'll effectively always be trading at the average. But I will also not benefit from the markets going up, right? I won't be negatively affected by the markets going down, but I also won't benefit from the markets going up, because the markets are also not going to go up forever. I mean, if you think that the price of T-bone steak is going to $10,000 a pound, the markets are not going to go up. I mean, then you're equally as an idiot. I mean, I hope that we don't see $10,000 a pound T-bone steak, because that would be like a mega hyperinflation. And so, I don't really see that happening. Whatever, right? I mean, if that happened, running cattle is going to be the least of my worries, right? I mean, it will be like a freaking I don't even know, right? I mean, there'll be like probably nuclear bombs flying everywhere. I mean, I don't think that that's gonna, but if it does, I mean, running cattle is gonna be the least of my worries. And so but in terms of my business, what am I looking to accomplish over the next year? What are the plans? What are the goals? What am I going to do? What are the targets that need to be hit, right? And so my whole situation right now is that I got 33 animals. When I sell these 33 animals, I anticipate that I'm going to have 50 or so animals. Realistically, I'll probably have about 60, but that doesn't matter. But I'm just going to say 50, and I take a loan for 50 more. That puts me at 100 animals. I owe the bank 50 animals worth of money. I take those 100 animals and I increase the value of those animals by raising them properly. I take them to an evaluation point of 200 animals, right? I take them up to about 850 pounds. Body conditioning score 6. Commercial standard animals. And when I do that, I will effectively have about 200 animals worth of money, right? And so I take the 200 animals worth of money. I pay the bank back their 50 animals worth of money. I anticipate that it's going to cost me about 35 animals worth of money to run my business for about a year. So that leaves me in a situation where I now have 115 animals, right? And if I have 115 animals, after that situation, the big plan is to what? Start scraping money off of my business to buy things that I need, because I anticipate that I will need equipment to expand my business to a larger degree. Right? And so the big idea is what? If I have 115 animals worth of equity, I'm going to take 15 animals of equity off the top. I'm going to buy what I need. Now I still have 100 animals worth of equity, right? I don't have any of the bank's money involved. I have 100 animals worth of my own equity. When I raise those 100 animals, I will turn that 100 animals worth of equity into 200 animals worth of equity. Then when I have 200 animals worth of equity, what is the plan? I'm going to keep myself at 100 animals worth of equity by scraping the money off of my business and buying tax deductible equipment that I need, like a new truck. Right? I'm going to buy a new truck, maybe a new trailer, etc., etc. I'm going to keep myself at 100 animals worth of equity so that I can buy things that I need by scraping money off of my business. So if I have 100 animals, and by the time I've raised those animals to a commercial standard, etc., etc., I have 200 animals worth of equity, I will take 100 animals of equity off the top. I will take that money, buy what I need. And then after I do that, and then when I'm ready to go, I will have 100 animals worth of equity. I will have all of the equipment that I need. And I will also be with the 100 animals worth of equity, at that point, when I have all of the equipment that I need, I'm ready to go. I will take the 100 animals worth of equity. I will take a loan for 100 animals worth of equity. Why would I do that? Because it puts me at a net zero. Then I'm going to expand my business. And I believe that this is going to take me about a year. All right, it's going to take me maybe a year and a half. So if I take my 100 animals worth of equity, I take a loan for 100 animals more worth of equity. I expand my business. I take those 200 animals. I raise those animals to a commercial standard. When I'm done with those animals, they will be worth, what, 400 animals worth of equity. I pay the bank back their 100. I still have 300 animals worth of equity left over. Let's say I use whatever, 50 animals worth of equity, 75 animals worth of equity to keep my business running and whatever, pay for all of my bills. That still leaves me with like 225 animals. I make over a 100% return on my money. All right, but that is the plan for about the next year and a half. That's what I'm looking to do with my business. And also if we're really going to look at the fine details, I really want to get myself a business line of credit. My farm is very profitable. It's making a large amount of money. I want to get myself a business line of credit, and I want to start purchasing my animals on a business line of credit. Right? How do you get a business line of credit? You collateralize your business for it. Right? And so, I want to get myself a business line of credit. I want to start purchasing my animals on a business line of credit. In terms of, et cetera, right? I mean, when it's all said and done, I anticipate that I will have probably, within about a year, I will probably have about $750,000 of cash. And then I'm going to move forward with my business. I'm going to expand my business at that point. I will also have all of the equipment that I need, etc., etc. Right? And then, so that's the bigger, broader idea of where am I heading with my business? What am I looking to accomplish? Did I go over everything? The business line of credit, collateralizing my business, oh yeah, and also if this piece of land, okay, here's the thing about me buying this piece of land. If this piece of land does not work out for, whatever, right? I mean, they decide that they don't want to do the contract, whatever, right? And so the piece of land does not work out. I am ready to go effective immediately. I've already talked about this. As of right now, I'm probably sitting on about $350,000 worth of cash. All right, maybe even about $400,000. The whole situation that I was in was that I did not realize that I was doing like 1,000% of the work. I did not realize that I was legitimately doing like 5 to 10 times better than I actually needed to be doing. I did not realize that. I was anticipating that if I wanted to pull money out of my LLC and pay for my, my debt, I thought I was going to have to pay like close to, 35, 50% tax. I legitimately thought I was going to have to do that. But I don't have to do that. And so that's like, effectively, I just doubled my money. Right? And then I also thought that, well, if I want to make a margin for myself, right, I don't just want to be running my business on empty, right? I don't just want to be scraping across the bottom. I want to make a margin for myself. Then I'm going to have to do better than that. And so I am currently in a situation where I am legitimately doing about 500 to 1,000% better than I actually need to. I did not even realize. All right, because I legitimately thought that if I was going to pull money out of my LLC, that I was going to get taxed heavily. And so I was keeping all of my money in my LLC and reinvesting that money into my cattle. All right, and but I mean, on the other side of this whole thing is that because I did what I did, I actually have a, when I evaluate my business logically, when I take a look at what I'm doing, my business is probably worth close to about $10 million as it is today. All right, when I take a look at what am I looking to do with the capital, what am I looking to do with, what am I going to do with the business, what am I going to, I'm probably sitting on about $10 million worth of business equity. And and that number, and actually I actually want to talk about this. I actually talk about inflection points, right? The idea of hitting inflection points with money. Me, when I expanding my business, buying myself a new field is going to be an inflection point for the amount of money that I make. I'm going to be able to reinvest all of my money into buying more cattle, and when I buy more cattle, I'm appreciating these assets, right? So that's going to be, but there will be another inflection point when I hit 100 cattle worth of equity. It will be another inflection point when I hit 100 cattle worth of equity. The amount of money that I make is going to go vertical again. And this is also what I mean by when you take and I've always said that this whole thing, all right, it took me 15 years, all right, and I'm not asking for a pity party. I'm not asking, and I've always said, if you want to go and make $10 million by yourself running commercial cattle, then go and do it. Nobody's stopping you, right? I mean, don't, if whatever, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the least that you can do is what? Keep your BS to yourself, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like, if, it took me 15 years to do this, all right? And now I'm finally at a point where I can make effectively such a drastic amount of money that I can effectively more or less do anything that I want. I legitimately have zero money problems. And so, the thing is, I don't, it just is what it is, all right? And when you take a look at, like, the amount of, and I've already talked about this, right? The further that when you start hitting the 1%, and you actually notice some you're like, this is a person who is actually like, I actually do not even comprehend how much money they make. You've actually noticed instinctively, you have picked up on somebody who is beyond the 1%. And when you go beyond the 1%, the disparity of the wealth goes drastic. It's drastic. The gap between the people who have more money at that point is drastic. And I've used me as an example. If you take a look at how much money I make, there is a very real possibility that I make more money than you and everybody that you know combined. It's a very real possibility, right? And here is the thing. When you take a look at how much money I make, and then you actually take a look at the entirety of the picture, if I worked 62 years and made this same amount of money every year, I would barely have half of $1 billion. Half of $1 billion. So, you got to understand that, the people who make the money effectively make all of the money. Effectively, all right? And so it's like, you need to take a, and I've always, and me, the thing about me is that I give away the information for free, right? I make a substantial amount of money. I don't make like I'm not even close to making the most money in the world, but I already make enough money that I can effectively do anything on the entire, I can effectively do anything that I want, more or less, sort of like drugs, alcohol, gambling. I can effectively do anything. I legitimately have zero money problems. Even right now, I'm sitting around with like $250,000 to $400,000 worth of cash. All right, and just straight money. And so in reality, within about a year and a half, that's going to go up to maybe about a year, it's going to go up to about 750 grand. And so, the whole situation, when I hit 100 cattle worth of equity, I am actually going to hit another inflection point and the amount of money that I make is actually going to go vertical again. I'm telling you right now that it's going to happen. All right. And so, but, but that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.